Welcome to Audible Stories. Self-help is best help. Once a poor woman had a beautiful daughter, but the girl was as lazy as the day gets long. Her mother wished her daughter would learn to work, but no matter how hard she tried and scolded, the girl dawdled away every day. One morning, as the lazy girl sat about doing nothing, the old woman began once again to pester her to work. Just then the king's son happened to ride past. "Good woman," called the prince, "your daughter must be very bad to make you scold so long and loud." The poor woman was stunned. She bowed to the prince. "Oh no, sire. I was just begging my daughter to stop working so hard. She spins 3 bags of flax in one day, and the next day she weaves it into cloth, and by the 3rd day she has sewn 10 shirts or more. I worry that she works too hard. She sounds just like the girl I want to marry," said the prince, for he had long hoped to find a wife who could spin and weave and sew, and moreover he was also dazzled by the girl's beauty. "Dress your daughter in her cloak, and we'll ride to the palace. I'll marry her if my queen mother agrees." Well, this worried the old woman, but before she could say a word, the girl was on the horse behind the prince, and away they rode to the palace. When the queen saw the young lady, she smiled, and when the prince told of her marvelous skills, the queen handed her 3 pounds of flax. "This shall be spun by tea-time tomorrow," said the queen, and with that she said good night. The girl wept as she sat with her flax and spinning wheel, wishing she had listened to her mother's advice. Each time she tried to thread the wheel, the thread broke, and she was back at the beginning, and so she wept even more. Suddenly a tiny old woman with enormous feet appeared. "Never mind, young lady," said the woman. "If you'll invite old woman Bigfoot to your wedding, I'll spin your flax while you sleep." Of course, the girl cried happily. Sure enough, next day at tea-time, the queen was amazed to see so much thread. It was the finest threads she had ever seen. "Dear child," the queen said, "it's really very lovely. Tonight you shall do the weaving." Naturally, that night the poor girl wept, for she did not know how to work on a loom or even how to hold a shuttle. Suddenly an old woman with broad shoulders appeared, and she offered to weave the thread. If she could invite the old lady Broad Shoulders to attend the wedding. Naturally, the lazy girl agreed. The queen was delighted when at next day's tea-time she found a cloth woven as fine as any she had ever felt and seen. "Now rest," the queen said, "and tonight you shall sew my son's shirts. After that, we shall celebrate your wedding." The poor girl sat that night with scissors and needle and thread, but she knew nothing about sewing, and so she wept again. Suddenly a little old woman with a gigantic nose appeared. She offered to sew the shirts in exchange for an invitation to her wedding. The lazy girl said, "You are most welcome for my wedding." When the queen came the next day at tea-time, "Well, you've never ever seen such fine shirts as those that lay upon the table," said the lazy princess to the queen. Now people talked of nothing but the wedding, and oh, it was grand. The poor mother came, and the queen praised the lazy girl's talents. And she talked about how happy she would be after their honeymoon. "My daughter-in-law and me will sit together every day, spinning and weaving and sewing the whole day," the queen said. The prince, dreaming of riding and swimming and dawdling with his bride, frowned at Queen Mother's thought. And you can imagine how the bride felt when she heard the queen's plans. Just then, the old woman with the big feet entered. "Dear me," the queen said. "Why are your feet so enormous?" "Ah," the woman sighed. "My feet have grown because I've spent my whole life standing at the spinning wheel." Before the queen could say another word, the second old woman walked in. "Holy moly," the queen asked, "why are you so broad between your head and your feet?" "This I owe to sitting all my life at the loom," the second old woman lamented. When the third woman appeared, the queen asked, "Alas! Good God, tell me, please, why is your nose so big and pointed?" "Ah," the woman sighed. "I've spent my life bent over my sewing machine, and the blood of my whole body has seeped into my nose." The prince put his arms around his wife. "My dear," he said, "if ever I catch you spinning or weaving or sewing, I'll pull out and throw off the needle, the thread, the flax and the loom from your hands." The queen had no choice but to agree. "Now remember, you must not imitate the lazy princess. After all, she had these 3 fairies to help her, and not everyone does get this opportunity." So slowly and gradually the lazy princess began to visit her poor mother and learn everything from her. When troubles came to her later, no fairies appeared to help her, for the lazy princess had now learned to help herself. She now understood that self-help is the best help. If you like the story, please do like, share and subscribe. Thank you for listening.